Hey everybody, Andy Kvernen here, one of the pastors at Cornerstone Church, and it's good to be with you on this beautiful Thursday afternoon. It's sunny outside. I hope you're having a great day, and I'm excited to bring you an update on where Cornerstone is at regarding our plans for reopening worship here on campus. I want to affirm, Cornerstone, what I've seen over the last week. I challenged you a week ago to consider others better than yourselves from Philippians 2. I challenge you to look to others' interests. I challenge you to take on the attitude of Christ, who gave himself up for others. And church, I just want to express to you, I'm so grateful for how you've applied that this week. There's been a lot of good conversation, a lot of charity amongst each other, even with divergent opinions. And so I'm so grateful for how you have conducted yourself. I think God is honored, and I'm certainly encouraged as one of the leaders here. As we talk about reopening our on-campus worship experience, a few words come to mind for me. One is it needs to be responsible. The reality is that the pandemic is still an issue for us, and we want to be responsible in how we're responding to it. It also needs to be relational. One of the beautiful things about Cornerstone Church is how we love each other. And we want to continue that. And so whatever we do, we need to have some context for relationships to thrive. And then it needs to be rich. And by that I mean we need to have a full worship experience where we can appreciate each other, where we can sing and worship our God in a robust way, where we can preach the Word, and where we can experience the presence of God together. So we need to be responsible, we need to be relational, and we need to be rich. And with that, we need to be flexible to accommodate the variety of situations and things and experiences that people will have. So as I prepare to share with you, a metaphor comes to mind. I went hunting when I was 21, I think, or we're very young, for the first time. And I went deer hunting. And I walked out with my cousin, and I parked next to a tree, and it was dark. And as the sun rose, I looked across the field, maybe 150, 200 yards away, and I thought I saw something that could be a deer, but I didn't know. And the more the sun got closer to the horizon, the more clear the picture of what I was looking at became. And pretty soon I realized it was a beautiful 8-point buck. Church, over time, the sun is getting closer and closer to the horizon where it's casting light on the situation that we have. And I don't necessarily mean that spiritually, I just mean it literally, that we're starting to have clarity about what we're seeing. And I think we're at a point of clarity much, much greater than where we were last week in terms of how to respond and how to re-enter. And so I'm going to share that with you. I said last week that we were looking at an early June start, possibly earlier. After a lot of prayer and consideration this last week, we think June 7th is the best time for us to re-enter into a live worship experience. There's some data out there that says it's good to wait for a period of time until after the safer at home orders have been lifted, just to see what's going on. We think that's prudent. Another reality, though, equally as important, is it just takes a while to retool programming in order to do it well, that we can be responsible, that we can be relational, and that we can have a rich experience. And so June 7th is the date that we've identified, and phase 1 for reentry is going to look like this. We're going to continue with a virtual worship service at 8:55. That will look much the same as what the worship services have looked like over the past 10 or 11 weeks since March 15th when we began the virtual worship experience. We realize that there are some who aren't going to be ready to come back to an in-person gathering regardless of what we do. And if that's you, we want you to know it's okay. We love you. We can't wait to see you back here. And I'll continue to make a case that at some point an embodied experience is going to be best for all of us, that we're in person together. And yet, we acknowledge there's a lot of factors at play. Some of you are in a population that's considered vulnerable, especially to the virus. Some of you have pre-existing conditions. Some of you aren't sure you want to bring your kids back to an environment where they might be exposed. And we respect that. And so we're going to continue with that 8:55 virtual worship service as it's been ongoing here the last number of months. On top of that, though, we're going to add an in-person experience outside. And I'll tell you why I'm really excited about it. It'll be likely at about 10:45 a.m., a little bit of a buffer between those two services so we can retool and get out there. It'll be a sermon, it'll be worship, it'll be fellowship, all those things. And what a outdoor worship service does for us is this. It allows us to keep social distancing with a larger group of people. So we're not going to have to put a limit on it. We have a beautiful space on our north lawn that I get to look outside my window every day. I see deer out there. I've seen fox out there, turkeys, you name it. I love it. There's a beautiful grassy area that we can spread out, and we can BYOC. We can bring our own chairs, and we can bring our own coffee. We can spread out. You can bring an umbrella if you want. You want to sit on a blanket, that'll be great. And we're going to have a worship service outside. That allows us to have a larger group of people and to maintain social distancing. It's safer. From what we understand, I've talked to the Wood County Health Department personally about it. Our health team has engaged with each other, and they agree that it's just safer to be outside. Aerosols aren't an issue in the same way that they are inside. Airflow issues, different things like that. So we're convinced that this is a good first phase. We're going to encourage masks, but you're not required, and I anticipate we'll have some wearing masks and some not, and we're going to be okay with that with each other. We'll likely have some areas set apart. If you want to stay in your car, we'll have some drive-in spots where my hope is that you'll be able to hear the service just fine and be a part of it. But if you're in your car, we'll know not to climb in there with you. That's what you want, and we'll respect that for sure. Of course we won't climb into your car with you, right? All right. And then we'll have a bathroom protocol established and be able to do that. And there'll be some things that we'll need to observe just to keep safe and keep everybody in a good position with each other. But we'll work that out and explain those details the more we go. Now, if you are in one of those categories where you have a pre-existing condition or you're especially vulnerable, we do encourage you to stay home. We think that's a good idea, and we want you to heed that advice. Now, that said, if you have one of those pre-existing conditions or you are in an age demographic that's supposed to be particularly vulnerable to the virus and you come, we're not going to turn you away. You're not posing any more of a threat to anybody else by being here. We just encourage that for you, it's a good idea to stay at home. But if you come, we're not going to say anything to you, and we're going to be so glad to see you here. Now, I want to just address a couple more things. The other thing that the outdoor service does for us is it allows us more flexibility for our programming. There's some advice that says, singing, congregational singing is potentially dangerous if the virus is present. It can spread more through aerosol. When you're outside, that's just so much less of an issue, and our team agrees on that. And so another advantage to outside is it's just plain old gorgeous in the summer in Wisconsin. So we're going to have a great time. Safest in-person option is what it is. Now, if there's inclement weather, and my expectation is if it's 55 degrees rather than 60 at the time of the service, that's not inclement weather. That's just normal, and we're gonna have a worship service outside. If it's blowing 40 miles an hour and raining cats and dogs, we're probably not going to have the outdoor service. And in that case, for phase 1, we'll go back to an online-only experience for that morning. Now, we're going to evaluate phase 1 at least every other week. And it's not an indefinite, it's not a forever plan. We definitely expect to get underneath the roof here sooner than later. But we think this is a good first phase. It'll help us to discern better what's happening in our environment, and it'll get us back together to worship really soon. So more specifics to come on the particulars on a phase 2. One more thing related to reentry, we're gonna hold off on groups in the building for now. We're hosting some very, very small meetings with staff and elders and leaders. We're doing some counseling on site, but we're gonna hold off on having group meetings here until at least after June 7th. And our safety team, our health team, and elders and pastors will continue to evaluate that, no doubt week to week. Church, here's what I love. I love that we're able to fulfill our vision, or at least to pursue our vision together during this time. We've been loving God together, and we've been doing that in corporate worship online. I know it's not the ideal, but you've been so faithful to gather, and it's been incredible. We've done it in contextual worship. Our students have met. Our children have been experiencing Bible lessons together. And again, not ideal, but rich and good. And we're going to do that in phase one. We're going to love God in tremendous ways as we gather out on the lawn and worship. We've been growing people. Growth groups have been meeting together. I've had so many great discipleship-oriented meetings on Zoom. And do I like Zoom as much as live? Absolutely not. But is it a good second best? Yes. We've been seeing God work and growing people. And I know it's not just me or other pastors. And you have been leading your groups. I've heard of one growth group leader that's been sharing a devotional with his growth group every day since COVID-19 happened. Isn't that awesome? Church, you're doing great. We're growing. We're seeing people growing during this time. We've been serving our city. We've been honoring what our city's asked of us. We've been engaged with that conversation at a city level in a variety of ways. We've done the community care kits. We've been involved in the Marshfield Community Hope Line, all those things. In church, God is using us, using you to demonstrate His glory right now. And we've been reaching the world. It's been fun to interact even with some of our mission partners through this time. Church, we can do it. Phase one, I think, is going to be a ton of fun. I'm just really genuinely looking forward to worshiping out on the lawn with you. And as we continue to pursue normalcy again, we can do it together. Let's continue to look out for each other's best interests. Let's not give up in the habit of meeting together. Let's not give up in our pursuit of loving God, growing people, serving our city, and reaching the world. Amen? God bless. See you soon.